Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the QB List pregame kickoff show. I'm your host, Aaron Rader. You can follow me on Twitter at RAY_DUR. Here with me, I have my friend and co-host, as always, Matt Dean, rocking the Cowboys jersey yet again.
Yep, after a loss, but it's okay. Coming back this week. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt Dean QB List, MATTDEAN QB List, and we had a crazy weekend for the NFL, didn't we?
Yeah, it's been a crazy 48, 72-hour period here with all the COVID news and stuff. We're going to kind of talk about that today, mostly that and injuries and kind of help people with their lineups. So be sure and send those questions in. We'll put them up on the screen and help you guys out.
Well, it looks like we have a few people that were questionable coming into the weekend. Joe Mixon was a late add. He's active. He should see his full allotment of snaps, but, he's already had a rough start to the year, and I feel like every week we're saying, he's a slow starter. How long are you going to drag that out and use that narrative until you're like, okay, I'm thinking about this guy's just a flex, and I'm going to switch him out for matchups?
Yeah, I mean, probably 4 weeks this is probably the last week I'd want to, especially if you're getting into bye weeks and stuff. A lot of owners are going to need depth. So go ahead and give him one more week, see how he does. Him being injured, I'm not sure how he's going to do today, but yeah, go ahead and if you want to, I don't blame you at this point in the season. Rookie quarterback, I mean, as good as Joe Burrow is, kind of limits his upside a little bit too, I feel like. I don't know. But yeah, that's one I would consider shopping after this week.
Yeah, what are you looking to get in return for him? I mean, let's say he does have a big week this week. Is that a sell high option for you, or is that okay, he's starting to round into form?
I mean, it all depends on your roster. If I'm kind of leading the pack, I don't really want to sell. But if I'm, 0-3 or 1-2, at this point, I'd probably go ahead and trade for depth with the bye weeks coming, especially with all the COVID stuff going on. You never know who's going to be in, who's going to be out at this point. It's a wild year. So,
was that your subtle way of rubbing it in my face that you're leading the pack in our league, or what?
It was not, but I wish I had Joe Mixon on my team.
Yeah, he'd be what, your like fifth bench spot at this point?
He might be.
Well, you thought you were going to have a big depth add there. We'll talk about another guy later that you already had rostered, but it looked like Carlos Hyde was going to be a nice play this week because that Chris Carson injury, it looked a lot worse than it did, and apparently now Chris Carson's going to play and Carlos Hyde's inactive, so big swing there. But with how much they're passing the ball, it seems like Chris Carson's turned into what we thought Joe Mixon was supposed to be.
Yeah, and a lot of fans were calling that a cheap shot on Carson. A lot of people were saying Cowboys defensive player kind of dove and rolled on his leg as he was, kind of going down to the ground. I don't really know if it was that intent, but
it looked like it.
It certainly didn't look good. I thought Carson was going to be out a lot longer. Carlos Hyde against Miami would have been nice, but it's not happening. And it looks like Carlos Hyde may be out today. So,
yeah, he's officially inactive. We'll take a break. Well, I guess we can keep talking injury here. We'll jump into COVID in a minute, but another big one is Kareem Hunt is active. He's going against my boys. And we give up a lot in the passing game, as you saw with your Falcons. So Kareem Hunt, I think, has a lot of upside. The guy I matched up against in our league actually is debating sitting Kareem Hunt, so I hope he does. But yeah, I think Kareem Hunt has been a solid RB2 flex option. I think he will continue to be all year. I've seen some places where people have Chubb and Hunt that they got for kind of the handcuff, but they've just been starting them both, and I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, and keep an eye on Hunt because he's I don't know. Is the latest indication that he's probable? because he's looked pretty iffy heading into
Yeah.
these.
So officially, Kareem Hunt's active this week. So
Okay.
yeah,
But he may be limited on snaps and whatnot. I think Chubb.
yeah, but it's just so hard to sit him after with the game script they're probably going to be facing.
Mhm.
I just don't see Hunt. Maybe he re-injures something, but overall, I think Hunt's a solid play because most people are putting him in the flex anyway. So I'm fine with firing him up as normal, and I think he's going to unfortunately have a good game in a loss, but good game nonetheless.
Yeah, and he's probably the more notable injury we have. Besides, the biggest one maybe kind of came late in the week, and we'll kind of springboard into the COVID stuff here. But Cam Newton test positive for coronavirus. I believe that was that Friday when they reported.
Yeah, so it popped up on I think Thursday, Friday, and quickly he got put on the COVID list, and then that sent us into the spiral that was the weekend up until really early this morning when we thought that people were going to be scrambling to replace Alvin Kamara, Saints players. It turns out the Saints are actually playing now full go because they said it was a false positive yesterday. I'm not a doctor or scientist, so I don't know if this morning they have false negatives or if that was for sure false positive, but they're going to play anyway. So let's hope it was a false positive and everybody's good to go there.
Yeah, and a lot of concern with the Patriots because and the Saints because the Patriots were trying to leave for the Kansas City game. Now that's being postponed. They're looking at tentatively got it scheduled for Tuesday. Still going to count for this week. As far as we know, it's still being played, but have a backup plan in case. And that's one thing we need to talk about is kind of backup plans and commissioners' duties. With these things going on. I think in our leagues we're kind of designating one player before kickoff in case the Patriots Chiefs game gets canceled. And those points, our commissioner is just going to retroactively put those points in if the Chiefs Patriots doesn't happen. If it gets canceled midday or something, that's kind of one option you have out there in your leagues. I don't know how your commissioners are handling it. A lot of people are just saying, "Oh well, it's just going to be a bye week. Just go ahead and deal with it." If they play, they play. I don't know. What do you think the best way to handle that is?
Well, the good thing is actually right now they are scheduled to kick off tomorrow night at 7:05 p.m. And so if something doesn't change between now and then, that's when it'll be played. And so how it looks now is we won't really have to deal with that. But in the case that there's another positive, in the morning or whatever it may be, and the game does get postponed, yeah, I think having the, what you said our leagues are doing, like designate someone on your bench because it hasn't been postponed yet. It hasn't been called an official bye week yet. And so I think having someone to, designate, let's say you're starting Tyreek Hill for the Chiefs. Well, have them designate somebody on their bench that they've picked up to say, hey, if they don't play, put these points in there instead. I've also seen, I think Matthew Berry said, to give whatever their projected total was, could give that as their points in a case. So there's a lot of options out there. You can get creative, but I think just designating an alternate is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really. It's kind of silly to me to put projected points in because we know how crazy projection can be and how off they can be.
Yeah.
Quick start sit question here from James Lieb. He says, "Hey Phil's pick 2 of 4, Mixon, Gaskin, Boyd, Slayton in a half-point PPR league."
Man, we're just talking about Mixon. Gaskin's looked good, man, in PPR, in this half PPR. Mixon's been banged up. It's just so hard. It's so hard to sit somebody drafted in the first round. I know of the receivers, I'm going Boyd. Maybe you can help me with the Mix and Gaskin dilemma.
Well, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think I would go Gaskin. Tough for me to say but I think with the injury with Mixon, I'm not sure how much he's going to be limited today. I know he's good to go as far as the designation, but I'd probably go Gaskin and Boyd actually, because I don't love starting two players on the same team anyway, unless they have an incredible matchup. But with him limited, I think I'd rather start Gaskin.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those things where, they are playing the Jags. These are two teams that the Bengals, I feel like, have more to play for than the Jags. The Jags, they could be mid-tank for Trevor Lawrence, It's kind of the race for Trevor Lawrence right now, and I just don't know that they're going to put up much competition. I don't know that if the Bengals get up early, I don't know that they don't, give Mixon some time off to make sure he's good for next week. So I'm fine with Gaskin Boyd there. And if it is a difference, Gaskin, I feel like is a solid double-digit point guy, like 10 to 12 points. Mixon, if he outscores him by a couple points, it is what it is. But I think the safest pick right here is Gaskin for sure.
Just kind of a little bit of news coming in here. We kind of talked Pats Chiefs are supposed to play tomorrow now. That'll be back-to-back Monday night games for the Chiefs, by the way. They're scheduled to kick off at 7:05 p.m. Eastern time, and they're moving the Falcons-Packers game starting time to 8:50 Eastern time. So going to be a late one for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think I read that actually puts the Chiefs in an interesting spot. They're going to be playing 3 games in a 10-game span, and so or 10-day spans, excuse me. So that could present some issues as far as if anybody's dinged up or, limited in the next couple of weeks. If you have Chiefs players, just keep an eye on that. Pray that nobody pulls a soft tissue somewhere or twists an ankle, because they're going to have a lot less recovery time over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and there's been a ton of hamstring injuries, especially among receivers this year. So
yeah,
hopefully they're all good there. Hopefully they don't have any COVID issues. That could certainly change that timeline. But
another, this isn't COVID related, but we have DeAndre Hopkins is officially active now. He was tweeting out yesterday funny GIFs and stuff. He likes to interact with the community and, was kind of trolling fantasy managers that were probably hitting him up nonstop. And so he's going to play. Christian Kirk is going to play. But ultimately, I think the Cardinals are going to be taking advantage on the ground, because this is a great matchup for Kenyon Drake to go off. We haven't seen that from him yet. He hasn't, just like Mixon, he's been a little better than Mixon, but he hasn't delivered that first-round value that you were looking for, or early second round. And so same with Kenyon Drake. I think if he does not blow up this week, you have to be concerned. Edmonds being there as the receiving down threat, it's kind of like a Chubb and Kareem Hunt situation, but only with, Drake and Edmonds. So, but Drake hasn't been putting up the numbers that Chubb has. So I feel like you have to be concerned. They look like Kyler Murray's their starting running back based on the numbers almost. And so he's another guy who's on my, sell-off list if he doesn't perform this week. So.
Yeah, and we'll kind of get a little bit into some sell high, buy low, sell high, possibly some trade advice. And Drake is one that I really thought he was going to be, after what we saw last year, he was going to be pretty stout, but hasn't really panned out here. He kind of started the preseason in a walking boot, so maybe that's still hindering him a little. Question from our leader, Eric Smith. From Discord, Kirk, Chenault, or Watkins? Well,
I think I'm going, unless something changes with the game tomorrow, I think I may be going Watkins here.
And Kirk's out, if I'm not mistaken.
He's playing.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's been pretty much like he's not playing these last few weeks, so you might as well leave him on the bench.
Right.
Watkins, probably has the highest upside easily. With that secondary, I don't love it, but it's probably the best option here. I don't feel great about Chenault. He's kind of just been a hit or miss. He's had a few flashes, but
Yeah, he's definitely been more of a gadget player. He's got some rushing stats in there. But I just think Watkins is the guy there because he has the most touchdown upside, in my opinion. So that's why I'm going Watkins. But put him in your flex just in case something happens to overnight for that game.
Yeah, so I kind of want to talk, just some more about the COVID stuff, just because it's going to be an issue heading in. We got lucky those first 3 weeks, and now it's kind of all coming at us at once. The Saints game was in jeopardy after they found out last night. They had someone on their flight. We still haven't heard any news about that, have we? They haven't said they're canceling the game or moving or anything, have they?
No. So the Saints, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, you said it's false positive.
Yeah, they retested this morning and they had zero positives. So they're good to go for today.
So, this is going to be, it's all up in the air from day to day and week to week. And, a lot of the time you can just treat these like bye weeks. But as we kind of said earlier with the Patriots game, you kind of need a backup plan. You need some kind of contention, in case it gets canceled in the middle of the day while everybody's, just kind of had their roster set and watching Red Zone and doesn't have a backup plan. So hopefully, a lot of commissioners see this and figure something out. The other thing is, I think the NFL, they claim they did, everything they could to kind of take precaution, with the cleaning and all that and keeping players, away from each other as best they could. And they got the technology with this is crazy. The bracelets that they have now where they can tell which player came in contact with who in the games and stuff, which is awesome. But I could certainly see a situation where this got out of control. The NFL kind of just comes out and shuts it down for a week or two just to kind of reset and get some tighter restrictions in place. I don't think we can go to a bubble situation with the NFL. I don't know. I don't see them playing all the games in one space with all 32 teams there, but I could be wrong. Hopefully it doesn't come to that though.
Yeah, I think the main issue we're going to run into is we're seeing this morning 2 more Titans players tested positive. I think they're up to 18 now. They already restructured their bye week. So their bye week's this week, along with they're scheduled to play the Steelers, I believe. And so, but now, their next week game is in jeopardy and teams don't get 2 bye weeks in the NFL. So, I think this week is going to be the true test for commissioners and how they handle their leagues. And it's looking like a strong possibility if, the Titans end up having to cancel their game next week or move their game next week. It's not like baseball where you can play double headers. It's not like basketball where you can play back-to-back days. Guys need time to recover. We were just saying 3 games in 10 days is going to be a lot for the Chiefs. And other sports, it's not the case. And so for the NFL and for commissioners of fantasy leagues, if, the Titans are to miss 2 straight games, that's going to be the real test. And it'll be interesting to watch this week.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, the problem is the lagging behind, the more, more positives coming out, days after the initial one. And that's going to be real sticky situation moving forward. But just want to, kind of tell all the owners and fantasy players to kind of just be prepared. You kind of came in this season you always play with the risk with injuries and stuff, but you're definitely playing with more risk, and everybody knew that coming in. It wasn't a secret. So hopefully nobody's out here demanding a refund and whatnot and all this, and just kind of adjusting on the fly. We got another question from Discord: Boyd or Thielen? I'm going Thielen. I love, as much as Jefferson went off last week, Adam Thielen's still, borderline wide receiver one and usually a target machine. So I'm going him.
Yeah, and their coach or their offensive coordinator said, usually they're putting up big rushing numbers. I think last week Dalvin Cook had like 150 plus yards on the ground, and they still lost. I mean, they're 0-3. It's 2 0-3 teams, Texans and Vikings, and so they said that they're going to have to rely on the going through the air. So I could see Thielen, putting up some big numbers. I like his upside definitely over Boyd, especially when I think Cincinnati, has a chance, I think, to go up on the Jags and kind of run it out. But, I mean, we'll see which Gardner Minshew we get this week.
We got another question coming in. He said he lost Cam Newton. Needs to pick between Kirk Cousins, Nick Foles, or Baker Mayfield.
Oh, Baker plays the Cowboys, so I'd probably go Baker.
Yeah, Baker, I'm always, cautious when I start Baker because he's so Jekyll and Hyde, really. But he probably does have the best matchup today. Kirk and them are playing Houston, but I think I like Baker's. A lot of the Cowboys games have kind of been shootouts, so yeah, I think Baker Mayfield's the play there.
Yeah, and I think the Colts defense, that's who Foles plays. The Colts defense has actually been very solid. They had a couple of pick sixes last week. I know it was the Jets, but they've, been solid so far this year and all, but they were just decent in one game. But, the Colts added Xavier Rhodes to their defense, and I think we saw him pick 2 balls last week, 1 for a touchdown. And so, yeah, their defense is no joke. They're looking like one of the better defenses in the NFL right now. And Nick Foles' first full start, I know, Nick Foles has built a reputation for himself for kind of saving teams, but I think still with the matchup that Baker has, unfortunately against my Cowboys, what did Matt Ryan put up, like 420 yards and 2 touchdowns and no picks against us? I mean, we just don't get turnovers hardly at all. So unless DK Metcalf's prancing into the end zone. So yeah, I'm going Baker for sure.
Just to kind of, we'll take one more question here in a minute. Just kind of hit back on the injuries if anyone missed it. So far, I'm just trying to catch up on the news. Chris Carson is playing. They thought he might miss this week, but he is playing. I'm not sure how limited it'll be. Zach Moss has returned to – I know he returned to practice. He's still questionable as far as I can see. And Kareem Hunt's expected to play. Again, we talked about that earlier, but we're not sure how limited he'll be either. And also Joe Mixon is active. So
yeah, and so I think we lost Aaron for a second there, but he'll be back. So the other injuries that were big were DeAndre Hopkins had he had an ankle injury he was dealing with. It looked like he was going to be all the way up to a game time decision, but it actually was handled this morning. So he's active. He's playing. He's actually been the wide receiver one so far. It's funny if you look at the leaderboard for top receivers. We have, and he's back. I was just talking about the interesting setup we've had at the top of the wide receiver receiving yardage rankings. I think we have, number 1 is DeAndre Hopkins, who's active today, which I was talking about. But then we have, I think, Kamara's up there in the top 5 leading receivers, and I think we have another running back up there. So, but it's got to be good news for Hopkins owners that he's active. I think it's even good news that Christian Kirk is active because it's less of an opportunity for double teams, even though Kirk's been pretty useless. And people that were going to start Fitz as a flex and hope he, looked like 2012 Fitzgerald is probably not going to happen. But got another question?
Well, yeah, sorry about that. Kind of closed out there when I was looking through the injury news, hit the wrong tab. So Eric said he's in the same boat as Mr. Oh, well, that was a Discord person. Sorry, don't have their name. But he's in the same boat. He's going Baker. Chad says, good morning, Breeze or Fitzmagic?
I'm going
Fitz because he's playing Seattle, isn't he? Yeah, they're playing Seattle. So Seattle's secondary has been the worst in the league in terms of fantasy points given up.
And Jamal Adams is out, so even more upside there.
So, yeah, I'd definitely go Fitzpatrick. And then Brian Sweet says, what's up, guys? So if your league doesn't have anything in place for Kansas City, New England, do you risk players from that game or roll with a lesser backup?
I think with the news we have right now, I think you roll with them just because they are scheduled to play. They've had no positives in the past 2 days. And so somehow Cam Newton, I guess this week in practice, they were just practicing his QB draws and he wasn't passing it to his receivers. But I do think if I have New England receivers like Julian Edelman, I think he might be safe more so than N'Keal Harry. James White, I think, has more of an upside this week because it's looking like it's going to be Brian Hoyer that's going to be starting. So, but I do think all Patriots players get a downgrade, and I wouldn't be starting New England's defense this week either. So, really, with New England, I'm only starting possibly James White and Julian Edelman. Everyone else is on my bench.
Yeah, and I've actually got Julian Edelman. I'm setting him this week for T.Y. Hilton and Ronald Jones. I just really don't want to deal with the whole Corona thing. I didn't love anybody coming into this matchup, but without Cam Newton, not sure that I really want to start even Julian Edelman. I don't know what Jared Stidham's going to be like, but there's plenty of room for they probably will have to put it in the air quite a few times playing Kansas City, so there's that at least. Question here from my buddy Roberto. He says, Jefferson, Gage, Gallup, and Ward pick 2 wide receivers. I'm gonna just assume this is PPR.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna, before we answer this, I was gonna touch on how you're feeling about the Falcons receivers. I mean, Ridley and Julio are both questionable coming in today.
Gage was also injured.
Yeah, they're looking like they're going to be all going to be active, but how do you feel about the possibility of Gage? Would you just take him out of that group with how that receiving core has been banged up?
I mean, I don't feel great about any of them against Green Bay on Monday night for sure. Which Matt Ryan does throw more than – okay, so it's half PPR. So I might go the touchdown upside there. Jefferson's playing Houston. Ward's playing – who are the Eagles playing? I'm blanking on that. The Niners?
They play San Francisco, yeah. But there's no one else to throw to. I mean, Zach Ertz, Ward, and Miles Sanders. That's basically it.
Deshaun Jackson. I guess he's active. Whoever knows with him.
He might be active, but he might be active for like 2 plays,
He might tweak his hamstring in warm-ups or something. I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I think I'm going Gallup for one because Cooper's going to get Byron Jones, I would have to imagine. Gallup might get open.
Yeah, I think –
I don't know who I'd pick as my second one.
Yeah, I think I'm for sure going Gallup, and I think I'm going Jefferson here. I think they're going to be throwing the ball in Minnesota. So Ward, I actually debated starting him over Melvin Gordon this week. Thank God I didn't. But unless Ward puts up like 35, then I would be upset. But yeah, I think I'm going Jefferson and Gallup in this situation because Jefferson, it was rumored that he was going to be more involved last week, and you saw what happened. So I think I'm running with that one over a converted quarterback beating out, the arguably top college wide receiver coming out last year. So,
yeah, and for me, I want to go Gallup and Jefferson, but it's hard to trust just 1 week of a blow-up game because before that Jefferson hadn't done anything. But so I'd say Gallup, Ward, but I would be inclined to also start Gallup and Jefferson. But certainly,
Yeah, well, I mean, Ward only didn't do anything till last week either. I guess you could say, his situation is better, I guess, with the receiving core the way it is, but I don't know. Just got a feeling about Mr. Jefferson, which is not good because he's on your team and not mine, but
well, we'll get into the rankings a little bit here. After talking all this Corona and injury news, let's see here.
Yeah, so we can start with the quarterbacks here. We have, and the rankings are done each week, facilitated by Eric Smith, who oversees QB list, make sure it's all running smoothly. And, some weeks he'll join us, some weeks he won't. So the weeks he doesn't join us, he doesn't get to defend himself when we roast him on some of his rankings. But basically, if you go to QBlist.com, there's a week 4 tab at the top. It changes each week, week 5, week 6, and so on. And he's got it tiered. Basically, green is his tier 1 QB1s, yellow, and then red are his flyers, I guess you could say. So his top 5 at QB he's got right now is Patrick Mahomes, number 1, which is like we talked about, could be iffy if any news comes out. Russell Wilson, number 2, Kyler Murray, number 3, Josh Allen, number 4, and then replacing Cam Newton at number 5 will be Aaron Rodgers. So Lamar Jackson outside of the top 5 here, he's got him right after Aaron Rodgers. Baltimore playing Washington. Is it a surprise to you? I mean, Lamar Jackson hasn't been the Lamar Jackson of last year yet. Let's get that straight. But, I mean, if you had Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers backing up on your team, Lamar Jackson, would you start one of them over Lamar Jackson?
As bad as Atlanta has been, I would start Aaron Rodgers this week. I mean, I hate to say that, but Lamar Jackson's been kind of a disappointment thus far. Washington's defense is not bad. I think, although they lost Chase Young last week, is that correct? I think I remember him leaving that game.
Yeah, they lost Chase Young last week.
Mm-hmm. So that could be, a real hurting factor for them. But I still like Aaron Rodgers this week. Okay, we know Cam's not playing, so and then you got Josh Allen, Murray, Wilson, and Mahomes, who are arguably the 4 best quarterbacks in fantasy right now. So I can see it. I mean, it's tough to put last year's MVP at number 7 on any given week, but I won't fault him there this week for that.
Yeah. I think Russell Wilson, until further notice, is my QB1 every week, though. I mean, that dude's balling out. So, and he, should have had an extra touchdown last week if it wasn't for DK Metcalf, making that blunder. So, I think Russell Wilson is my QB1 right now, especially Mahomes playing New England. I know, their defense is always coming to play. Bill Belichick's great at scheming to knock out certain parts of people's games. So he'll still get his stats, but, I might have Mahomes, number 2, 3, 4. I could see him anywhere in there. So Josh Allen, though, I know you like him. You think his hot streak continues against the Raiders?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of expected him to cool off last week against the Rams, and he didn't. So I certainly expected to keep going here against the newly formed Vegas Raiders. I know I was getting some questions on Reddit this week about Mahomes, and if I was concerned, if I wanted to start someone else. Even against the secondary, I mean, last week he played Baltimore, and people were wanting to fade him then too, and then we saw what he did. So I just don't think you can really sit Mahomes no matter what. He's pretty much matchup proof. He's kind of shown us that over the last few years. So sit him at your own risk. Unless if you got I understand, maybe if you got Aaron Rodgers, somebody like that, you want to exploit the matchup. I can get it.
Or if you're super concerned that something's going to happen between now and their game tomorrow, you could always have New England's quarterback as your contingency plan, I guess, if you're that concerned. I think that game's going to happen. It's been 2 days now with not a single positive on either team. So I think it's minimal risk playing Mahomes this week. I think that would be the only reason you would sit him, is if you thought that game was going to get postponed. But, yeah, I think you're not sitting that guy for sure. And the kind of second tier here, though, let's talk about, because we had some questions about Baker Mayfield, Drew Brees, Kirk Cousins, some of those guys, Nick Foles. We see names down here who have historically been really good in the past. Jared Goff is actually trending up. He's the number 10th ranked quarterback on Eric's list. Big Ben has been serviceable so far. Gardner Minshew, we saw take a step back, and Ryan Fitzpatrick is, I think with the Jamal Adams news, I move Ryan Fitzpatrick up to a viable streamer this week, over Gardner Minshew, over Drew Brees, maybe even over, well, obviously over Big Ben because their game's postponed. Sorry about that. But, yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick, it seems like he does this every year. I think we thought it was the Bruce Arians effect in Tampa Bay, but it looks great so far. He's having fun out there. I'll give you a few guys and tell me, who you like out of them. So if you had, let's say, Jared Goff against the Giants, Ryan Fitzpatrick against Seattle, Tom Brady against the Chargers, who are you trusting out of that group?
Yeah, given the matchups, I would be inclined to play Fitzpatrick just because the Seattle secondary has been so horrendous, and also no Jamal Adams. I'd probably rank it Fitz, Goff, and then Brady. As good as Brady looked last week, he looked pretty vintage last week's matchup, but Chargers defense, even without Derwin James, is pretty stout.
Yeah, and no Chris Godwin there for them, it looks like. So
yeah,
I think I agree.
Curious to see if Gronk gets involved again like he did last week. Finally got to see him break out a little bit. So that was it. That was fun. And Scotty Miller kind of busted out and was what we thought he was going to be a few weeks ago when Godwin was out.
Yeah, and then, week 2 he had kind of a down week. A lot of people were – I think even we were saying put him in your flex, and he kind of let people down. But he also struggled with some drops, an underthrown ball by Brady. He would have had a touchdown in week 2. So, yeah, I think as much as I hate to say it, a Brady owner, I think I'm trusting Fitzmagic there to continue the magic for one more week. And because, there's no doubt about it, they're going to be playing from behind. They might be playing from 3 touchdowns behind most of the game. And so I like him a lot this week as a streaming option, especially if you have someone like Ben Roethlisberger or Ryan Tannehill that's, now on bye. So we can jump over to the running back rankings. Do you have anything else to say about quarterbacks?
No, that's pretty much it. Ryan Fitzpatrick I was going to talk about him. We hit on him because I like him better than 17 with that matchup. Deshaun Watson could be in for a big day against Minnesota. He's at 9. He could finish in the top 5.
And Bill O'Brien said that he was going to take over more of the play calling. So now not only is Bill O'Brien the head coach, he's also the GM, and he's also the offensive coordinator apparently. So pretty soon he's going to also be playing quarterback, it seems like.
He's a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I guess so. At running back here, Eric, he has some kind of numbers or some little blurbs he puts up in the rankings. A lot of guys we've talked about are up there, including, Chris Carson, Kenyon Drake, Joe Mixon, James Robinson, who we haven't hit on this week yet, but we will. He's got Kamara number 1 against Detroit. Luckily, Kamara dodged that scare this morning with a negative COVID test. Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and Austin Eckler rounds out his top 5. Is Kamara at this point just a no-brainer RB1, especially until Michael Thomas comes back? RB1.
Yeah, and I think Alvin Kamara and Aaron Jones probably had the highest ceilings this week. given their matchup, given Michael Thomas's. Well, Michael Thomas is actually playing this week, right?
No, he's out.
Oh, he's out again? Okay. Last I saw, he was trending towards playing. But so Alvin Kamara, yeah, I mean, until further notice, he's probably going to be the running back one. And like I said, Aaron Jones playing Atlanta, probably going to be plenty of room for upside. I don't like Austin Eckler here at number 5, though, against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense is pretty stout. You know, he is a good PPR back, but even still, I don't love that.
Yeah, it just seems like since Justin Herbert came onto the picture, I mean, it's, 7-8 targets for Eckler. He catches them all. I think he's more at number 5 because of his floor more than his upside. Then you have guys below him that I could definitely see ahead of him. I mean, Miles Sanders, I don't love against Philadelphia or against San Francisco, even though he's basically their only offense. I think he has like 45 touches in 2 weeks since he's came back. Jonathan Taylor gets Chicago. Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets his New England. Chubb may be someone that I would vault up there, maybe over Eckler, just because he gets Dallas. They're going to be, they get him involved in a lot of different ways. So how do you feel about Edwards-Helaire? Are you sold that he's an every week RB1 right now, just based on his usage in that offense, or where do you have him in your mind?
So I actually did the write-up this week for our sit start and had the Chiefs Patriots and got to write that up and kind of dive into his numbers. I think he's averaged like 15.1 points a game this year. So kind of hard to set someone with that kind of a floor. And that's with him not even getting the touchdowns yet. I don't know what I don't know how he's going to look moving forward as a goal line player, as a goal line threat. But I just have to think in this offense, as much as he touches the ball, they're going to come at some point, whether that be on screens or, some kind of pass or a run. Because he's definitely not built. I know a lot of people say he's not built like a goal line back, but, we've seen a lot of undersized backs be successful at the goal line in this league. So, yeah, it's hard for me to sit him with that being the case.
Yeah, and more so I was just wondering if you see him as a, every week RB1 and I think you said it right there, 15 points a game. You can't argue with that. That's about as safe a floor as you can get there. If I'm getting 15 points from my, running back slot every week, I think, you take it. That's 90 yards and a touchdown right there. So, moving down to kind of his flyers and people we talked about, he has Joe Mixon at number 15. It'd be 14 with no Derrick Henry there. Kind of rounding out his, top tier there, or safe tier, I should say. And James Robinson is 15. I feel like James Robinson's someone that if I have, let's say, James Robinson and Kareem Hunt, or James Robinson and, Kenyon Drake even most weeks. This week, Drake has a good matchup, but James Robinson's looked like a stud so far. And he's going against Cincinnati, which is not scary at all. So I could see him being a top 10 back this week easily. How about you?
Yeah, he's been on a roll. Sadly, I traded him in our main league before the season started. That's why sometimes you don't make preseason trades, folks. It can both help and hurt you. It's always a gamble. But he's definitely been incredible. I think last Thursday he had 30 points or something like that. James Robinson.
I think it was 30 plus. I think it was up towards 35. Yeah, it was a wild week. So
we'll see if he continues that here against Cincy. Definitely has the opportunity to against that defense. I don't know about, Gardner Minshew is he didn't look great last week, but hopefully we'll get that offense back on track.
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking, they're headed for, like I said earlier, the sweepstakes for Trevor Lawrence, which would end Minshew Mania, Hopefully none of you listened to Minshew preseason for that case of Bud Light and drafted Minshew with their number 1 pick. But, yeah, James Robinson, undrafted, I believe, right? Undrafted rookie, is looking much better than, all their other options. We thought that Chris Thompson was going to come in and kind of take away a lot of the volume there, and just hasn't. So I'm liking James Robinson a lot. A lot of people got a steal there. Unfortunately, your steal, you stole him and then you sent him. But
and yet I'm still stocked with weapons. We have one rolling in here from Sam Joshi. Sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong. MVS, Ward, Jefferson, or Gage in PPR.
Yeah, that's Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the drop machine.
I think I'm going him out of all these with no Alan Lazard this week.
Yeah, if you just got one option, and Devontae Adams I think he's trending towards playing, but he's questionable right now, and that's a later game. So I think I'm going Valdez-Scantling there as well. Just has the most upside, in my opinion.
Yeah, Alan Lazard is going to be out for, I think they said 8 weeks possibly. So could get interesting here.
Yeah, he had a core muscle surgery, which was kind of random. I mean, he blew up last week, so tough break for owners there.
Let's see. So on the running back rankings, I think that's pretty much everything you wanted to cover, right?
Yeah, my pat on the back is having Melvin Gordon as my flex, and definitely outperformed his number 17 slot here on the ranking. So, but he's someone I think right now is a sell high for owners with Philip Lindsay coming back. If you need depth, I think you could probably get a 2-for-1 for Melvin Gordon right now pretty easily. And so, I know we're not talking about buy low, sell high right now, but I think he's a sell high candidate for sure this week.
Yeah, and I agree with that, especially given their quarterback situation. It was the Jets, so keep that in mind. I don't think that Melvin Gordon will do this every week with this kind of quarterback play. So,
You mean you don't trust in a guy named Ripien?
no, or Bortles or Driscoll.
Maybe John Elway can come down. We
Oh,
can hop over to wide receivers here, and we're getting close to kickoff here, so we'll try to go through these the tight ends, the defense pretty quick. Like we said, Devontae Adams questionable right now. Looks like he's trending towards playing. DeAndre Hopkins retakes his number 1 wide receiver role here as he's active. Tyreek Hill number 2, Tyler Lockett number 3, Calvin Ridley number 4. Julio Jones, not to be seen here, I'm sure, with some updated rankings that, he would be slotted in up here. I saw an article this week that was saying, has Calvin Ridley jumped Julio Jones in the wide receiver 1 conversation? How do you feel about that comparison there?
That's disrespectful for one. No, I mean, Julio draws a lot of double teams, and people probably don't respect Calvin Ridley as much as they should. And I mean, when Calvin Ridley's your number 2, it's tough to defend anyway. Calvin Ridley could be a lot of teams' number 1. But as far as I see it, maybe Ridley kind of overtakes him just a little bit while he's kind of injured here. But no, I don't. No.
You're not on that bandwagon yet?
I'm not, especially after, Julio just looked so good week 1, and I know everybody's always hating on him in fantasy because he doesn't get the touchdowns they want and all this, but still one of the best receivers in the league.
Yeah, if not, physically, I think he's probably the most gifted. He's definitely really good at dropping, touchdowns in big moments, though. I think right now, I think Calvin is the play just because of, we saw in that Dallas game, Julio was struggling on that hamstring. until we know he's 100%. I think Calvin right now does have a fantasy stake over him. But I think given both being full health, I think Julio would still be the guy. But, I mean, people got a good deal on Calvin Ridley this year, as well as another guy that I know you like is Tyler Lockett. They were both drafted similar spots. Tyler Lockett here ranked number 3 on Eric's rankings against Miami. DK Metcalf ranked number 5. Is this an offense that you think continues to support 2 top-end wide receiver ones moving forward?
Well, I know you called DK Metcalf the true number 1 in Seattle, so but it looks like Eric disagrees. Tyler Lockett had quite an outing last week. He could see who's going to see Byron Jones. Is he going to swap today? Is he going to swap between these two?
I don't know, because both have such good speed, and Byron Jones is pretty quick himself. So, I haven't looked into it enough to know if Byron Jones is normally a shadow or if he's, one side of the field. So, I think regardless of, it seems like DK is good for 1 deep touchdown a game right now, and Lockett's good for about 10-yard catches, one of them being a touchdown. So, and
last week Lockett had a multi-touchdown game, which is like an anomaly. Usually, last year having him, it was frustrating because he'd get so close to having touchdowns and he wouldn't really, he wasn't scoring them, but he was doing, having double digits every week in PPR. And this year's just been, I almost faded Lockett because of Metcalf in the draft, but certainly glad I didn't now because I also didn't expect this offense to kind of break out like it has and then to let Russ cook, as they say. So they certainly have, and it's certainly helped them.
Yeah, and following those guys, we have, if you haven't, just a disclaimer, if you haven't ever seen, DK Metcalf when he got to Ole Miss versus, DK Metcalf when he left Ole Miss, and you want to, have your jaw hit the floor, just go look up some before and afters there. Dude's a freak. I think he continues to ascend in that offense, and as long as he doesn't do bonehead plays like he did and keep dropping the ball. But
one guy,
go ahead.
One guy I want to talk about. I know he's not really towards the top, but just for my own sake, is T.Y. Hilton, because I'm starting him today just because I don't like Edelman or that situation of possible cancellation and the quarterback and all that. Where is Hilton, man? Like, Paris Campbell's hurt. Their rookie Pittman's hurt. Like, why is he not catching more passes? Is this just Phillip Rivers? Is it him? I mean, I know he's battling. He had a hamstring injury coming into the season, but that doesn't seem to be plaguing him at all. So.
Yeah, so I'm just pulling up his stats here. On the season, he's 17 targets, 10 catches, 133 yards. That's like, an average game for Tyler Lockett, right? And that's through 3 games on the season. So I think, honestly, Phillip Rivers, I had thought T.Y. Hilton was going to be his kind of Keenan Allen role. I don't know that T.Y. is not as good of a route runner for sure. He, early on in his career, we saw him burning people deep, kind of in a Deshaun Jackson-esque role. Phillip Rivers doesn't have that kind of arm strength anymore. It could be a Zach Pascal kind of day, as people out there have mentioned him as a sleeper. But yeah, T.Y. Hilton is, I feel like over the past few years he's been this way. I mean, boomer bust and lots more busts than booms. It's hard to say, tongue twister, but I mean, he's ranked here down below guys like Jerry Jeudy, N'Keal Harry, Russell Gage, John Brown. John Brown, I think, is higher than that. DJ Chark, who didn't mention him, but he's active this week. I just am not comfortable with T.Y. Hilton right now. I could see him blowing up week to week, but Phillip Rivers is just so dang conservative, man, that it's hard to trust him for sure. Yeah,
and I think a lot of it's been matchup based, or at least that's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
And they've just been able, like last week, they were just able to play defense, run the ball. I mean, it was the Jets, so that was part of it. So maybe it's a little bit of that, but they're playing Chicago today. I really don't know how much they're going to be able to move the ball through the air. But we'll see. We'll see if he bounces back. I just don't see how the opportunity can't be there with all of the people who are injured right now and their lack of receiving options. But I think maybe Rivers just kind of is washed up, like people were saying. And
well, the running backs very much enjoy Phillip Rivers being around, that's for sure. If you have Jonathan Taylor, I know that Hines was like the spend 50% of your fab freak out after week 1 and has done nothing since then. So, but yeah, Jonathan Taylor, high upside guy with Phillip Rivers there as long as he's starting. And with only 3 minutes left before kickoff here, for people that are already jumping into the DFS lineups and have some last-minute decisions to make, I always like to suggest a defense that I think could be in a good spot to save you some money for your starters, your flex spots. And honestly, I think this week, the upside coming in was on Thursday, it seemed like, with Denver and the Jets, and that didn't turn out like people had planned for it to. The Colts, I think, are, again, not the top tier salary to pay for. You can save a few bucks and start the Colts there. Any defenses or any other sleepers anywhere that you're looking at that you think people should have in their lineups before we kick off here?
Arizona's defense might be all right. I don't know the price. They're playing Carolina. Carolina's offense hadn't been the best.
I agree with that one, actually.
As far as positions, can't really think of anyone right now that comes to mind.
Someone I would look at is Hunter Renfrow. Buffalo's given up lots of big games so far this year to the slot guy. So, so look at Hunter Renfrow for your flex spot.
One I'll ask about is, well, this is just a start set question for me in another league. Would you start Jerick McKinnon against Philly or Jarvis Landry against Dallas?
Ooh, I don't think, did Landry have the questionable tag coming in, or is he a full go?
I haven't seen the injury designation. It shows that he's playing.
Yeah, I think I'm going. Jarvis here. I think they're going to have to throw a lot, and McKinnon seems like he gets injured every game he plays in. So,
yeah, and I've got Jerick starting in a few other leagues, so I think I'm going to roll with Landry in that one because I think it could be a offensive game on both sides. So,
yeah, I'm with you.
Getting those last minute lineup decisions in. So,
yeah. All right. Well, it's been fun, man. We'll see if we were right or completely off here as we start to kick off here in a minute. And
also, we didn't talk about it much, but Georgia had a big night last night against Auburn. Got Tennessee coming up, Matt and his Volunteers. So looks like we got the 3:30 kickoff on CBS. So it'll be a fun one. Hopefully, I can. I'll get the bragging rights after this one, unlike I did with the Falcons and the Cowboys.
Yeah, I won't start talking trash at halftime if we're up this time. All right, man. Well, I'll see you on here next week. Go turn on Red Zone, and we'll be back to help you guys with your sit-start questions. Same time next week.
See you guys.